Marcus Webb stood outside First National Bank in downtown Chicago on a bright Tuesday morning in early March, observing the impressive glass and steel building that housed one of the city's most established financial institutions. At 48 years old, Marcus was the founder and CEO of Webb Capital Management, a private equity firm that managed over $8 billion in assets and specialized in acquiring and restructuring underperforming financial institutions. He'd built his fortune from nothing, starting as a junior analyst at a small investment firm right out of business school, and working his way up through a combination of brilliant financial instincts, relentless work ethic, and an ability to see value where others saw only problems. Before starting the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Now, let's get back to the video. For the past 3 months, Marcus and his team had been quietly evaluating First National Bank as a potential acquisition target. The bank had solid fundamentals, but had been struggling with management issues and declining customer satisfaction. Marcus believed that with the right leadership and strategic investments, First National could be transformed into one of the most successful regional banks in the Midwest. But before committing $500 million to an acquisition, Marcus had a personal policy of visiting each potential target incognito to experience their customer service firsthand. He'd learned over the years that the best way to understand an organization's true culture was to walk through the door as an ordinary customer and see how you were treated. Today, Marcus was dressed casually in dark jeans, a simple button-down shirt, and a leather jacket. He carried a leather portfolio that contained detailed financial statements for his holding companies. But to any casual observer, he looked like an average customer coming in to discuss banking services. This was intentional. Marcus wanted to see how First National treated people who didn't arrive in expensive suits or luxury cars, because that would tell him everything he needed to know about whether the bank's culture aligned with his values. He pushed through the heavy glass doors into the bank's lobby. The interior was impressive with high ceilings, marble floors, and modern art on the walls. Several teller windows lined one side of the space, while the other side featured a row of private offices for account managers and loan officers. A receptionist sat at a sleek desk near the entrance, looking up as Marcus approached. "Good morning," Marcus said with a friendly smile. "I'd like to speak with someone about business banking services and potentially a commercial loan." The receptionist, a young woman named Sarah, returned his smile. "Of course, let me see who's available. Do you have an appointment?" "No, I don't. I was hoping someone might have time to meet with me today." "Let me check." Sarah picked up her phone and spoke quietly for a moment. She hung up and looked at Marcus. "Patricia Hoffman, one of our senior loan officers, can see you in about 10 minutes. You can have a seat over there and I'll call you when she's ready." "Perfect. Thank you." Marcus walked to the waiting area and sat down in one of the leather chairs. He pulled out his phone and reviewed some notes his team had prepared about First National's loan policies and customer demographics. Everything he was reading suggested that the bank had become increasingly conservative in its lending practices, which might explain why their growth had stagnated. After about 15 minutes, Sarah called his name. "Mr. Webb, Ms. Hoffman is ready for you now. Her office is the third one on the right." Marcus walked down the corridor and found the office with Patricia Hoffman's nameplate on the door. He knocked lightly, and a woman's voice called out for him to enter. Patricia Hoffman sat behind a large desk, a woman in her early 50s with perfectly styled gray-blonde hair and a navy blue business suit. She was reviewing something on her computer and barely glanced up as Marcus entered. "Please sit down." Her tone was professional but cool. She continued typing for another 30 seconds before finally looking at him, and Marcus saw her expression shift almost imperceptibly as she took in his casual attire. "You're here about business banking services?" "Yes," Marcus replied, settling into the chair across from her desk. "I'm exploring options for banking services and potentially a commercial loan for business expansion." "I see." Patricia folded her hands on her desk. "What type of business are you in?" "Investment management. I run a private equity firm that focuses on financial sector acquisitions and restructuring. Patricia's eyebrows rose slightly. Private equity? And you're looking for a commercial loan. What size loan are you considering? I'd want to discuss the specifics after I understand more about your bank's lending criteria and terms, but I'm looking at something in the range of $50 to $100 million. There was a long pause. Patricia's expression shifted from professional courtesy to barely concealed skepticism. Mr. Webb, I'm going to be frank with you. A loan of that size would require extensive documentation, collateral, and proven business history. Most businesses that qualify for loans in that range work with our private banking division, and they typically come to us with existing banking relationships and referrals from other clients. I understand. Marcus kept his voice even. I'm happy to provide whatever documentation you need. I have financial statements from my companies, personal asset documentation, and references from other financial institutions I've worked with. Patricia leaned back in her chair, studying Marcus with an expression that made him uncomfortable. Mr. Webb, I've been in banking for over 25 years, and I've seen a lot of people come through that door with big dreams and small bank accounts. A private equity firm claiming to need a $50 to $100 million loan raises some red flags for me. That's not typically how established PE firms operate. You're right, Marcus agreed. Established firms with strong banking relationships typically don't need to seek out new lenders. But I'm evaluating several banks right now for a broader relationship, and I like to start these conversations by understanding a bank's approach to lending. Well, let me save you some time. Patricia's tone had shifted from skeptical to dismissive. First, National Bank doesn't make loans of that size to individuals or firms we don't have existing relationships with. We'd need to see years of audited financial statements, proof of assets well in excess of the loan amount, detailed business plans, and probably personal guarantees. And even then, a loan of that size would need to go through our executive lending committee, which typically takes months. I expected as much. Marcus pulled a folder from his portfolio. I have preliminary financial information here that might give you a sense of my firm's position. These are summary statements for Webb Capital Management showing assets under management, revenue history, and current portfolio holdings. He slid the folder across the desk. Patricia opened it and glanced at the first page. Her expression didn't change, but Marcus noticed her eyes widening slightly as she scanned the numbers. The summary sheet showed that Webb Capital Management had $8.2 billion in assets under management, annual revenue of over $400 million, and a portfolio of 17 companies across various sectors. These numbers seem... Patricia paused, choosing her words carefully. These seem quite impressive, but I'd need to verify all of this through independent sources. Anyone can create documents that look official. Of course. Marcus kept his voice pleasant. That's why I included contact information for our auditors at Deloitte and our legal counsel at Morrison & Hayes. You're welcome to verify anything you'd like. Patricia set the folder aside without looking at the rest of it. Mr. Webb, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think First National is the right fit for what you're looking for. We're a conservative institution that focuses on established relationships and proven track records. I'd suggest you try some of the larger national banks that might be more willing to take risks on newer clients. Newer clients? Marcus felt his patience beginning to thin. Ms. Hoffman, my firm has been operating for 12 years. We have a documented track record, relationships with major institutions, and more than enough assets to secure any reasonable loan. What exactly about my profile suggests I'm a risk? Patricia's expression hardened. Mr. Webb, I've been doing this long enough to know when someone is overreaching. You walk in here without an appointment, dressed casually, claiming to run a multi-billion-dollar firm but looking for a commercial loan like a small business owner. That doesn't add up. Now I've been polite, but I have other appointments, and I don't think we can help you. Marcus sat back in his chair, the full weight of what was happening settling over him. This wasn't about his qualifications or his business. This was about Patricia Hoffman taking one look at a black man in casual clothes and deciding he couldn't possibly be who he claimed to be. She hadn't reviewed his financials thoroughly, hadn't called his references, and hadn't asked substantive questions about his business. She'd made a judgment based purely on appearance and assumption. "Ms. Hoffman," Marcus said slowly, "let me ask you something. If I had walked in here wearing a $3,000 suit and a Rolex, would you have treated me differently?" "I treat all potential clients the same, Mr. Webb." Patricia's voice was clipped. "This has nothing to do with anything except the fact that your request doesn't align with our lending practices." "Really?" "Because I've been documenting this entire interaction, and I'm seeing several red flags. You dismissed my financial statements without thorough review. You suggested I'm overreaching based on my appearance rather than my qualifications. And you're rushing me out of your office after less than 15 minutes, despite the fact that I'm discussing a potential relationship worth tens of millions of dollars to your bank. I don't appreciate your tone, Mr. Webb." Patricia stood up. "I think this meeting is over." "You're right, it is." Marcus stood as well, pulling out his phone. "But before I leave, I'm going to make a phone call. I think your CEO would be very interested to know how his senior loan officers treat potential clients." "Feel free." Patricia crossed her arms. "Richard Caldwell is a personal friend, and he'll support my judgment completely. We'll see about that." Marcus dialed a number. The call was answered almost immediately. "Richard, it's Marcus Webb. I'm at your First National branch on Michigan Avenue, and I need you to come down here right now. There's a situation you need to be aware of before I make my final decision about the acquisition." There was a pause, and Marcus could see Patricia's confident expression beginning to crack as she processed what she'd just heard. "Acquisition?" "Yes, I'm in Patricia Hoffman's office. I'll wait for you." Marcus ended the call and looked at Patricia, who had gone very pale. "Ms. Hoffman, I should probably clarify something. I'm not here looking for a loan. I'm here evaluating First National Bank as a potential acquisition target for my private equity firm. I've been conducting due diligence for 3 months, and today was my final test to see how your bank treats customers who don't fit a certain profile. You just failed that test spectacularly." Patricia's voice was barely a whisper. "You're trying to buy the bank?" "I was," Marcus corrected. Past tense. "After this interaction, I have serious concerns about the culture here and whether it aligns with my firm's values. Discrimination isn't just morally wrong, Ms. Hoffman. It's terrible business. You just turned away someone who was prepared to invest $500 million in this institution because you made assumptions based on how I looked." The door to Patricia's office burst open, and Richard Caldwell rushed in, a man in his early 60s wearing an expensive suit and a panicked expression. "Marcus, I'm so sorry. I had no idea you were coming in today. We could have arranged a proper meeting with the full executive team. That's exactly why I didn't announce my visit." Marcus's voice was calm but firm. "I wanted to see how your bank operates when nobody knows they're being evaluated. And what I experienced was deeply troubling." Richard turned to Patricia. "What happened here? Your senior loan officer refused to seriously consider my business because she decided based on my appearance that I couldn't possibly be qualified. She dismissed my financial documentation without review, suggested I was overreaching, and tried to send me to other banks. All of this happened in less than 15 minutes, and none of it was based on actual evaluation of my credentials or business." "Patricia, is this true?" Richard's voice was tight. "I was following standard procedures." Patricia's voice shook. "He came in without an appointment, he wasn't dressed professionally, and his story seemed inconsistent." "His story?" Marcus pulled out his portfolio again. "I told you I run a private equity firm, and I gave you audited financial statements showing $8 billion in assets under management. What exactly seemed inconsistent?" Patricia had no answer. Richard turned to Marcus with genuine distress on his face. "Marcus, please, let's go to my office and talk about this. This is not how First National operates, and this is not representative of our culture, isn't it? Marcus gestured to Patricia. She's been with your bank for over 25 years. She's a senior loan officer. This is exactly what your culture looks like, at least from where I'm standing. Over the next hour, Marcus sat in Richard Caldwell's office, detailing everything that had happened in Patricia's office. Richard was horrified and apologetic, but Marcus could see the calculation happening behind his eyes. Richard knew that losing a $500 million acquisition would be catastrophic for the bank, and he was desperate to salvage the situation. "Richard," Marcus said finally, "I appreciate your apologies, but here's the reality. I can't invest in an institution where senior staff treat potential clients this way. It's not just bad optics, it's a liability. If Patricia treats a billionaire investor like this, how do you think she treats ordinary customers who are black or brown? How many good lending opportunities has your bank missed because of bias and assumption?" "You're absolutely right," Richard leaned forward. "Marcus, I want to fix this. Tell me what you need to see to move forward with the acquisition." Marcus thought for a long moment. "I need to see real change, not just lip service. Patricia needs to be terminated immediately, not quietly reassigned. I need you to conduct a full audit of your lending practices to identify any patterns of discrimination. I need mandatory bias training for all customer-facing staff. And I need a commitment from your board that diversity and inclusion will be priorities going forward." Richard nodded slowly. "I can make all of that happen. Patricia will be terminated today. We'll hire an outside firm to conduct the audit, and I'll personally present your requirements to the board. If you do all of that and I see evidence of real change, I'll reconsider the acquisition." Marcus stood up. "But I'm putting this deal on hold for 90 days while I watch how you implement these changes. If I'm satisfied that First National is serious about reform, we'll move forward. If not, I'll take my $500 million elsewhere." Over the next 3 months, Marcus watched carefully as First National implemented sweeping changes. Patricia Hoffman was terminated, and several other employees who had complaints about discriminatory behavior were let go. The bank hired a diversity and inclusion officer, conducted comprehensive bias training, and implemented new policies to ensure fair treatment of all customers. An independent audit revealed troubling patterns in lending practices that were addressed with new oversight procedures. Marcus eventually moved forward with the acquisition and personally oversaw the transformation of First National into an institution that prioritized inclusive banking practices. The bank's customer satisfaction scores improved dramatically, and its lending portfolio became more diverse and profitable. Patricia Hoffman never worked in banking again. The story of how she turned away a billionaire investor because of racial bias became a cautionary tale in the financial industry about the cost of discrimination. And Marcus Webb proved that sometimes the most powerful response to bias isn't anger or revenge, but using your position and resources to create systemic change that ensures others won't face the same treatment. If this story moved, you share it, because discrimination in financial services prevents many qualified individuals from accessing capital and opportunity, and only accountability and reform can create truly equitable banking. Thank you very much for listening. Please let us know what you think of this story in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any other videos.